Welcome to part 2 of our localization tutorial series. This is the last part and you will learn how to add translations, what you should be aware of, how to reduce word count, how to localize textures, and how to set up your blueprints for changing the language on the fly. As always, have fun watching! Welcome back to part 2, so let's continue right away. Close this view and in our localization dashboard you see that our translated word count for our added culture is 0. We will change that by clicking on Edit Translations at the right, make it full screen again, then open the Untranslated tab. Here we have still the two numbers which we don't want to localize, and we have the example text twice, which is also bad because for localization agencies you will pay for the word count and having words twice is just a loss of money. To fix those issues we need to go back to the editor, open the widget again. Okay, let's have a look. What we can translate now is just the language and the reload text, which we will do first. So head back to the translation tab again. For the language translation, click in the language row in the input field of the translation column. Now type in the translation for it. In German this is called Sprache. Then hit enter. The text is saved and the cursor will jump automatically to the next row. And we can type in the translation for reload. In German it is Neuladen. Then hit enter again and this translation is also saved. Next we will fix the issue for the text 1, 2 and the example text. Go back to the widget. And now select the number 1 and under the details panel for the content text settings, click on the small arrow beside the input field. As you see here, it is set to be localized. We will change that by just clicking on the boolean to no. Next select number 2 and do the same in the details panel. As you see here, we also get a warning indicator with this icon that it is set to not localized. Next we will fix the example text being listed twice. To do so we need to reference both of those texts to use a variable from a string table, which then displays the text from that variable. Head back to the content browser and under our work folder do a right click. Under miscellaneous select the string table. Set the name to duplicated text. Now open the string table. In the bottom left we will now set the variable of our text. Name it example txt. Then switch to the source string input field on the right and type in example text and hit enter. Now we've set up a key which is used as a reference, and wherever we use this key the source string text will be used. Now click on save and go back to our widget again. With the example text selected, open the text dropdown for the localization settings. Under reference text, open the dropdown for the string table and choose the duplicated text string table. And under the second dropdown you can then set the key example txt, which should be selected already. Next select the other example text and open the localization dropdown as well. Choose the string table again and make sure that the example txt key is set. You can also unlink any reference text here if you want to type in text again, but we want to have it set by our string table, so let's revert it. Now we're done fixing this issue, so click on compile then save. Also open the string table and save this one. Next close the translation interface for your added culture. Go back to your localization dashboard. Now we will gather the text again, and what we expect is a less word count for English and some % for the word count for our added culture. To check this, click on gather text again and wait for the gather text to be finished. Then hit on OK. Now you see that the word count for English decreased. To check the details, click on the Edit Translation button on the right. Go to the Completed tab and as you see the numbers are gone and we just have example text listed once. Close it. Go back to the localization dashboard. Now we will open the translations for our added culture. Switch to the Untranslated tab. Here we just need to add the translation for our string table example text. In the input field I will type in Beispieltext, which is the German translation, and hit enter. Now the translation is saved and we can close this tab. Go back to the localization dashboard. Under cultures, click on gather text again. Once it is done, hit on OK. And as you see now, our added culture is completely localized. Next we need to compile the text changes, otherwise we won't see the recent changes we did for the cultures. To do this you can either click on those compile translation buttons on the right of each culture, or if you want to compile everything you can click on the big compile text button here. Do so and your text will be compiled. When it is done, click on OK and our localization is now ready to be used. One good thing to know is that the engine is automatically checking our system language, and in case it matches with one of our cultures, it will set the language automatically for us. In my case, I have a German system and we've added also the German culture here, which means that our game language should be German as soon as we start the game in standalone mode. Let's check this by going back to the editor, then under the play settings, select standalone game, and then hit on play. Wait for the game to be started. As you see here, the text is already translated. We have the example text here. The numbers stay the same since we don't want to translate them. The language is fine and our reload button is also translated, which means that our translation changes work properly. Okay, what we still need to do is to set up the dropdown to contain our available cultures. And we also want to add the texture localization for our image at the top. Close the game and open the widget to localize again. Next go to the blueprint graph. First we want to add our available cultures as options to our combo box. So do a right click in the event graph, search for event pre-construct and select it. What this node does is to trigger events right before the widget is created, which is a good point to add our cultures. Do a right click and search for get localized cultures and select it. This node will return all the available cultures from our localization dashboard. In our case it is EN and DE here. Next, drag a line from the return value. Leave the booleans to the default settings. Add a for each loop. Select it. And connect it to the event pre-construct. Now we will drag over the combo box from the variables. And select get. Then drag the pin of it. Search for add option. And select it. Connect the loop body pin to the input pin of the add option node. And then also drag a line from the array element and put it in the option pin. Now we would have both of the cultures in our combo box as selection options, but we still need to add the default option there. Otherwise the dropdown would be empty. Therefore drag a line from the combo box variable. Then search for set selected option. Select it and move everything into place, like so. Then connect the completed pin to the input pin of the set selected option node. The only thing which we need to do now is to get our current culture and add it to the select option node. Therefore do a right click, search for get current culture and select it. Then connect the return value to the option pin. Now we can check the results, so click on compile, save, then go back to the editor, click on play, wait for the game to be loaded. And as you see now we have the default option selected, which is exactly what we want. Close the game again and go back to the widget. Next we want to add the functionality to the combo box to change the game language on the fly. Go to the designer. Then select the combo box. In the details panel on the right, scroll all the way down. Under events, click on the plus for the selection changed event. A new event appears for the combo box. So do a right click and search for set current culture, select it and connect it to the selection changed event from the combo box. Then drag a line from the selected item pin to the culture pin. And as soon as a new culture is set, we also want to set the default option for the combo box again. Drag over this variable from the left into our viewport, choose the get, drag a line from the pin and search for set selected option. You could also copy it from the top. Next, connect the set current culture to the set selected option node. Then do a right click, search for get current culture again and select it. Now connect the return value pin to the options pin. Then make sure to compile and save. Go back to the editor and click on play to test it. When it is done loading, we want to test the language change via the dropdown. In the dropdown, select the other culture there. And as you see, we just changed the language on the fly while the game is running, which is the result we have been looking for. All the text changed now, and when you switch the language again, the other culture will be loaded and your text will be updated. The only thing which is missing is the localization of our image at the top, which we will do in the next step. First of all, we will add some functionality for the reload button, so go back to your widget, switch to the designer view, then select the reload button. In the details panel, scroll all the way down, click on the plus for the clicked event, then drag a line from this new onClicked event. Then search for open level and click on open level by name. In the input field, we will just type in our level name. In my case, it is Loca map. This is all we need to do for the level to be reloaded. So compile and save. Now we will set up our localized texture. Go back to the designer. Select the image at the top. In the details panel on the right, open the brush settings and click on the magnifying glass to open the texture in your content browser. And localizing a texture is as easy as doing a right click on it. Then go to Asset Localization and go down to the Create Localized Asset. And keep in mind that we already have the asset ready for our native language, which is English. So this is our English texture here. What we need to do is to add it to our edit culture, which is German in my case. So click your edit culture. What you will see now is a new folder under content called L10N, which is the abbreviation for localization. In here you will find a new folder with the name of your edit culture. When you open it, you have the exact same folder structure like in your main content folder. And in here we have our localized texture, which doesn't have any change yet because we need to re-import a new texture for our edit culture first. To do this, open the texture. In the details panel on the right, search for the source file and click on the three dots. It will open your Explorer and I've already prepared a localized texture named logo.de.png. Just select your texture and then click on open. Now save and close this texture view. Go back to your content browser. In the localization folder, do a right click on your texture. Now just click on re-import under imported assets. This will update your texture with the localized one. Let's quickly open it up to check it. It says now German texture, so all is good and we can close it. Now click on save all in your content browser just to make sure that all the assets are saved. Once it is saved, we will do a final check in our game, so in the top bar click on play in standalone. Looks good, our localized texture is already loaded. All the other text is in our culture as well. Now let's check English again, so choose it from the dropdown. As you see, all the text content changed properly, but the texture did not. But as I mentioned earlier, textures are saved in the cache and will just be updated once those are reloaded. So in order to have the correct texture there, we click on the reload button at the bottom to reload the level. As you see now, the texture got updated as well, which is exactly the result we are looking for. And this brings us almost to the end of our tutorial. There's just one thing I need to mention. I will quickly close the game here and get back to our widget. You can still play around with your localization widget. Okay, back here I will add a new variable and open the variable type. It is very important to know that a name variable or a string can't be localized. Only the text type is localizable. Let's set it to name and compile it. Now in the default value you see here that it doesn't have any localization drop-down option, which means that it isn't localizable. Same for the string variable. Here you also see that the drop-down isn't there. Let's change it back to text. This is the only variable with the drop-down, which also means that just the variable type text is considered by the gather text function. Just keep that in mind when you're working with the different types of variables. And this brings us to the end of our tutorial series. Thanks a lot for watching, and you're now a pro when it comes to localizing a game in UE4. Don't forget to leave a like and a subscription, and see you in the next video. Have a nice day, bye bye.